And we are live. Gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mecca of Banter podcast. We're coming to you live in the summer, fellas. We are in the dead of it right now. Before we get into today's topics, I'll go ahead and introduce the fellas. But my name is Henry Wind. I am this week's host. And like I say every week, it is a great week to be a Manchester United fan. This week is no different. We got a U.S. men's national team fan in the chat today. Andy Hoover. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
What's up, lads?
Little bomb pop action for you.
Little bomb pop, little Clint number 8 bomb pop. Yes, yeah, like you said, Hoove here. We are in the dog days of summer. I have absolutely nothing to watch on TV. I am 6 months into a career mode managing Venezia in the English Championship. So we that's where things are at right now with the sports world, but USA taking the field as well as our city lads bouncing back. Some good stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. Dobes, what's going on with you, man?
What's going on, fellas? Happy to be here. Good to see you both. You guys kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, dog days of summer. I think the one benefit is just the first year during the summer that we get to enjoy some footy.
Yeah.
So shout out St. Louis City, bounce back this weekend. But there's definitely still some juicy stuff going on in the soccer world that we can dive into today. But happy to be here. Good to see you guys.
Dobes, what's a little house update, bro? How you doing with the house?
Dude, the house is fantastic. It's more so one of those where it's just a project every weekend, and then all of a sudden, do we want to go to the bar? And then the project doesn't get done, so it gets pushed off. A house update.
But that's what summer's for.
That's what it's meant for. A lot of yard work, a lot of conversations with neighbors that I don't want to talk to, but
shout out to the neighbors if you're listening.
It all comes with it.
I love it. Well, fellas, we have a juicy one today. We're going to get into St. Louis City, as you both alluded to, as well as the U.S. men's national team are taking on some absolute heaters in the Gold Cup. Let me tell you, we'll preview that game on Wednesday, as well as rounding out with some transfer updates with the lads. But first things first, let's dive into some St. Louis City. We had 2 games that we played since our last recording, and one went well, one did not go so well. So starting off with the 3-1 loss at home to Real Salt Lake. I think this was the most frustrated I've been after a loss. I think so.
In a while.
In a long time. I mean, maybe since United tied Tottenham a couple of months ago in the last couple of minutes of the game. I think that this was the most frustrated I've been since that. What happened, fellas? Give us your thoughts on that game. There's a lot to dissect here.
That one, yeah, dude, like you said, it was super frustrating, but I also think it was one of the matches this year where I didn't feel like, we left something completely. I think we got beat.
Just bad.
All over the field.
Just all over the field. And, Hebert was out with a red card suspension. So that just automatically means that we played John Nelson. And if you've listened to this pod whatsoever at all within the year, you kind of know our thoughts on John Nelson. And I think every single time he takes the field, is more and more people are seeing the exact same thing. It's on Twitter. People are like, I saw clips of him from last week, jogging to the ball at one point, and it was just everyone in the stadium was screaming at him, like get to the ball, like he was in range. So I think we aren't slighted well when he's on the field. I don't have issues with Jared Stroud. Again, sure he's a great guy, but his decision making is just unbelievably frustrating to me. Like you said a few weeks ago, he goes into a play with his mind made up, and then it's usually the wrong option. His finishing in front of net, I don't know stats on it, but this guy's probably got to have one of the highest, XGs missed, because of how many times that I feel like I've seen him in the 5-yard, the 6-yard box, front to net, and he doesn't score. And it, his just general decision making. He had a poor pass through the middle to Miggy, that was a hospital ball, and absolutely he had nothing to do with it, and they turned over and they scored. So I think those are the 2 guys that I was very disappointed with. And we've got notes here that were like, these are the things we need to change. And to be totally honest, Carnell did. We'll get, we'll jump into the most recent game next, but that one sucked. Parker, you're right, may need some rest. The guy plays week in, week out, every game, 90 minutes, and he looked slow too. It was just not a strong performance. Gioacchini's kind of on an island. That one was a huge bummer, and we wanted to bounce back away from home, and we did, but definitely a frustrating loss.
No, I'm in agreement with everything you said. I think the most frustrating piece of it is if you go from watching the Nashville game, where like we were kind of in that game without the fucking card, just 3 goals, a couple defensive lapses, but like the only real changes from that game to the Real Salt Lake game were like we changed. I think it was like Pompeu and like Hebert was out, but that was like red card or whatever it was, or he got sent off, whatever the case was. But I think that's the frustration, is that like we see how that 11 performs one week, and then 3 days later you only make 2 changes and expect some sort of like 100% completely different performance. So obviously very frustrating, but I think kind of that sort of leads into the positives that you could take away from this past weekend, seeing that like there were a ton of changes. There was a ton of switch up. And I think it was sort of that time where we were on a skid. It had to happen to where like Carnell was at the place where it was like bad performance after bad performance. Like, it's kind of one of those things where I'm sure everybody's sort of been there. Like when you play soccer, it's like, if you have a string of bad performances and you're like a guaranteed starter, it's like a coach is going to make a change to make you realize that you have to earn your spot. And not only that, but realize that there's guys behind you that can do a job and potentially do it better than you can. So I think this result this past weekend was just massive, not only for like just for us in the standings, but like you heard Carnell say that afterwards when he was smiling about, Big Sam and these guys stepping up. Like, competition is the best thing that we could possibly have right now. And so I think that's a massive positive, but I'll leave it to you guys to dive into the game, and then I can dive in as well.
Yeah, so going into that San Jose game, which was a team that we played earlier in the year as well. We made, I think, 7 changes to the starting lineup. We saw Big Sam come into the lineup, Jackson into the lineup, Miggy, Hebert came back, Yarrow was in the lineup, Akil Watts was in the lineup. A lot of things that we have been kind of like calling for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, 100%.
Which was exciting to see. Obviously we have such a fandom of Josh Yarrow from, us talking with him, but at the same time, he's our best ball playing center back that we have. He's the calmest guy, the most composed guy on the ball. And Parker looked like he could actually rest a little bit, knowing that he had someone so defensively sound next to him. And what I'll call out too is that with Hebert in the lineup, Hebert may not be able to provide you like the offensive force going forward, but he is so solid defensively that you'll take that all day long. If you make your attacking guys attack and your defensive guys defend, that's a good thing. So I think Hebert coming back was huge. And Akil Watts putting in a shift as that right wing back, getting up and down. At one point he popped up all the way at the left wing position. Really, really played a great game. But for me, I think the 2 bright spots of this game were Big Sam and AZ Jackson. Jackson's dangerous, bro. He picks up the ball in some crazy positions and his feet move so fast. And it's not like he's pulling like audacious moves or whatever, but like his body feints are in such a way that he can find space when it doesn't really seem like there's too much space to find. But then what a story that Big Sam is, getting recalled from loan after spending the entire, half of the season so far in San Antonio, going straight into the lineup, which none of us saw happening. We thought he was going to come off the bench and scoring 2 goals. I think that's massive, has to bode well for his confidence. And also, like, in a weird way, I think that puts Gioacchini at a lot of ease, because I think, as you've alluded to, he's been on an island and he has really, really stepped up his game this season. A couple months ago, we all said that Gioacchini may not have what it takes to be the main man, and he's popping in goals every single game now. But it has to feel nice that you can combine with someone else up top who can put the ball in the net. So it's going to elevate the team. So I think it was a big performance. Was really stoked with the guys.
Shout
Yeah.
out Santi Beltran. I just read this because I saw this tweet earlier. Literally reading it word for word, but it says like 6 of Saturday night's starters played most, if not all of their minutes last year in MLS's next pro / USL / even MLS Academy. Yarrow and Hebert obviously with City 2. Perez with City 2 and St. Louis City Academy. Jackson with Minnesota United FC 2. And obviously Big Sam coming back from the Tacoma. So like all of these guys sort of stepped up and took their chance. But I also think the big thing is it allows us to have something different. I don't mean necessarily like I don't think these guys are going to be starters, but I do think what bringing in Big Sam does, he's such a different type of player than Gio. To where
Yeah,
we know
100%.
if you do want to start Gio as a 9, we have Big Sam that you can bring off the bench, and instead of having to play Ostrak as a false 9 or
Yeah.
you know what I mean, just trying to figure out some bullshit up top. Like he provides us with that like athletic, big, physical presence that can dominate center backs. And you can also have Giacchini who can sit there and work off of them and provide something different. So I think there's a lot of guys that are used to starting that I think are going to have to look themselves hard in the mirror now and be like, I'm going to have to step up, or there's guys that can step in and play, because I think you hit the nail on the head with Yarrow was absolutely fantastic. We haven't said his name, but we can almost say it every time he plays. Blom is like the best 6 in the league. I don't watch
He's great.
I don't
It's
watch a lot of
unbelievable.
MLS, but he is absolutely unbelievable. I think the one change I would have made, and again, it's not to pick on the kid. We know he's young. We continue to say that he's going to develop, but like Miggy is just he's a step off of it. And whether it was
Yeah.
just giving Indiana a rest or trying to light some fire under his ass, like I would have loved to see Indiana in that spot. But then again, you have to give Miggy a little bit of credit because we did get the result. So what are your thoughts here?
I've a bunch, I think. It all kind of stems back to Lutz's original comment that we want a designated team, which is seriously so lame and such a cop out answer in terms of PR. But you see what he's trying to do, and I think this is another credit to Lutz's, ability to spot talent. The Big Sam thing is awesome. I was one of the guys who was awfully confused as to why we loaned him out in the first place, because anything could have happened to Klaus, and it did. And then I was sitting there scratching my head, like, what, this is the guy that plays the Klaus role as a 9. Like Giacchini's he's never changed how he played to become that guy. He's gotten better at what he was doing to keep himself into games and scoring goals. But I think Adrian allows us to play a little bit of the way that we did with Klaus, like finding a guy in the box or, using him as a target to body defenders.
He can press as well.
He can press as well. The guy's quick. I was really, really happy with what I saw from him and pumped obviously for the guy, and to have the confidence to take a pen like that.
I was going to say
I was nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was nervous for him. I was racking my brain. I was like, all of the guys who I would have picked to take a pen are not on the field right now. So who is it? I was pumped for him. I'm glad he stepped up. I guess maybe the loan truthfully was about him playing and getting game time. So, and if that was the case, then, probably hats off to Lutz and Bradley on that decision. But yeah,
Lutz tweeted afterwards, like, trust your instincts or something, or something like that.
Yeah, I think the guy is so smart and knows what's going on. There's depth around the field, and you're right. I mean, Blom doesn't really need to be talked about, but he's getting like, those national football TikTok guys that are making highlight montages of his performance as a 6. That thousands and thousands and thousands of people are watching. So that's always a pretty good sign to me. When you've got the little, smooth little jazz rap in the background of you just cutting guys up in the midfield. I love those videos, and I love that they're coming from, one of the best players on our team, I think. So yeah, pumped for Akil Watts. Josh Yarrow, I can't say enough about how good his performance was. It was just so calm and collected. Where I think that our defensive line often looks pretty panicky.
Yeah,
it's worked to a certain degree for sure. But it was so cool seeing him be so, his presence of mind on the field was awesome. Guy's a warrior too. He will defend anybody, no matter where on that pitch. Yeah, I can't say enough good things. It was a fun game to watch. I did want to shout out Diego Luna, from RSL. He
Yeah,
put the
bro.
first. He scored his first MLS goal against us, and I watched a little bit of the U21 World Cup. And he was good, bro. He's a dog. He was head and shoulders above some of his teammates in the competition in the World Cup. So excited to see his progression. But yeah, the first one was tough. It was cool to see them bounce back like this. And God, we haven't even said his name. Roman freaking Berkey's insane, bro.
Big saves.
Dude,
Insane.
I my reservations at the beginning of the season have been gone and
Debunked.
like even farther than gone, dude. Because it's not just big save, it's like big moment. Like it's
Yeah. Oh yeah.
he'll make the big saves early in the game that like, he probably should save, but then it's like end of the game. Like there's 10, 15 minutes left, one goal, they're right back in it. And he just steps up and makes a kick save or a hand save. And not only that, but it's just the way that he can calm down the back four in those moments. Like when he gets the ball, he has the presence of mind to slow the game down. It's just that experience that he brings. So he was absolutely
immense.
It is kind of interesting too. Like his leadership is pretty big as well. Like I've seen a couple of tweets where people have kind of like gone in on him of like yelling at his back line whenever the other team scores, and they're like, it's your job to keep the ball out of the net. Like don't quit screaming at your back line. But when you look at like the Real Salt Lake, like the 3 goals that they scored, all of them were defensive mistakes. Like where the defense just stopped thinking. And so like it is interesting. I don't always love when goalkeepers like scream at their back line. Like I always think of Jordan Pickford about how he's just a psycho about everything. But I feel like every time that Berkey kind of like lays into his defenders, that's what it is. Like they got to wake up, they got to do their thing. So big performance out of the boys on the bounce back. We have Colorado coming up this weekend, which we played them earlier in the season. It was a 1-1 game. We gave up that goal in the 92nd minute to tie, which felt like a heartbreaker. So I'm hoping that we bring that good form back into it.
They're last by a lot, so
yeah,
I would also really just like to beat them and fuck Stan Kroenke. So
yeah, I hope that the line. Truthfully, I hope the lineup doesn't change too much. Like the one change I could see happening is bringing in Giacchini for Alm and let Giacchini kind of float in that 10 up there with Sam as well. But I hope the lineup stays relatively the same, and then bring on Indiana for Perez. I think that's the other one. But I think you keep the back four the same. Even though Nerwinski's like our main right back, Akil Watts was locked down at the right back, and I think you take it to him.
I'm interested in your guys' thoughts because I've been watching. Obviously, we still don't have Nielsen back from like injury; he hasn't played yet. So, like, I'm curious in your guys' thoughts because I think one of the frustrating things with the back four that we currently play with, and obviously it sort of comes with the style that we play of a high pressing. We don't like to have the ball. But like, I'm curious into what Nielsen can bring to that back four. Because obviously everybody sort of knows how, I guess, important, if you want to say Parker is just being a rock back there. But like, we all know how terrible he is at playing out of the back. Like we realistically don't have a second ball playing center back right now that can step in and do that role. It's like, I would love to see the ability for like, if Yaro can keep this form, like give Parker that rest and we can slide Nielsen in. Then we can actually maybe become a team that can keep the ball a little bit better.
Yeah.
And you add Blom and get a little bit healthier. So I think one of the cool things is like we have all these issues, we have all these injuries. We're still top of the fucking table.
Yeah,
like, and so I think that's one of the things that like obviously we're very critical and we're fans, and that's what we'll continue to do. But at the end of the day, like we all couldn't have dreamed that 4 months ago we'd be top of the table. But I'm in terms of this game, Hen, I'm with you. Like I think Giacchini's got to come into the side. I think he's been like a week of rest is only going to do him well. Same thing with Indiana. Like he's too important to this team. Give Miggy a little bit of a rest. But Colorado is just bad.
Miserable.
Yeah, they're miserable.
Absolutely terrible. And we're at home. So I do think we cruise. I'd be like, I would love us to get a shutout. We haven't had a shutout.
My big concern with the lineup, and it's kind of my concern with the team in general right now because we're losing so many of those key pieces. is we are pretty set piece dependent. Our goals from open play at the moment, we just don't have the guys to be able to, get that final ball in and, do the job. So my biggest concern for sure is how reliant we are on set pieces. But that being said, I love a set piece goal. There are teams in England and across the world that base their style of play around set pieces. If you're that good at them, you can do that.
Yep.
So that I am a little worried about that, but I do agree with, the Gioacchini entrance to that. And I hope Big Sam gets another one. Like he deserves it 100% to get another go. The other thing that you mentioned about the center backs, which I've not thought of until literally just right now, but I think there's a world where you could slowly transition into a good back five. I don't think Nelson and Nerwinski are going to be your wing backs in a back five system, but I think you can give up some of that defensive exposure if you're playing Nilsson, Yarrow, and Parker.
Yeah.
And we forget that Kyle Heber is an out-and-out center back. He's just done so well at left.
You can play
that
all
we've
three of
shifted him
those
over.
positions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So realistically, we're talking about a back line that has 5 very competent center back replacements. So with depth that heavy in one position, I feel like you give looks to Pedro on the left. That's kind of the role that he came into. He's not looked great. He's 19 though. There's things I think, we fail to consider a little bit. And Watts can definitely go forward a lot better than Nerwinski. So I think there's a world where Nelson comes back and we could totally change the look of the back line. But for right now, the rotation is fantastic. If Josh is going to keep this bit of form, I have no reason to pull him out of that lineup. And, we move. I think Nilsson's pretty close to recovery. I'm really excited to see what he brings because I can't say I know a ton.
I hope he's class.
But dude, there's just no way that this man's played for the Swedish national team and isn't out and out our best center back.
Yeah.
There's just no way he's not.
But before we transition, I'm curious your guys' thoughts. And this is something that I don't know if I could pick who are you starting as your wide players?
I don't even know what position
in attack or in defense.
In attack, bro. Excuse me, going forward. Because I think that's the obviously we've all been frustrated with Stroud, but I genuinely have not been overly impressed with anyone. I think there's a world where you could play Jackson as a winger.
That's what I want.
I just think he's fearless. I think he's willing to take defenders on. He'll work both ways. He can also slide into the middle. I don't have 2 wingers that I'm confident being all right, when we start on Saturday, these are going to be the guys. And I think that's a massive problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want Jackson, on the right wing, or if you want to play more of as a right midfielder, that's what I want. And then I also think, man, when you have, Leuven back and healthy, I think you could also throw Indiana out wide. You could have him play as a 10 floater. If we're going to play fully healthy, we have Gioacchini in the 10-ish role. We have Klaus. Yeah, I want Indiana out wide, and I want Leuven and Blom as the center, and I want Jackson on the other side. I think that Jackson's decision making is significantly better than Stroud's, and like you said, he's fearless. Stroud's a little fearless too, but he's an idiot. He goes into tackles, he kicks guys late. He's a little bit of a liability. And then the first guy off the bench for me is Celio. I think he has a little bit of the fearlessness as well. I even think for Saturday, if I could handpick who are my wingers, I'm throwing Jackson on one side and Celio on
he
the
should,
other.
To me, he starts. I think he starts 100%.
They just take guys on.
He's got so much more creativity. He and Jackson have more creativity than Stroud's ever imagined in his life. We don't have a ton of those guys that can get on the ball and make something happen. I think Stroud picks up okay positions and plays his role, but he's not taking on guys with confidence, nor is he getting past anyone or really putting any good shots on net. So
confidence is the key word there.
Yeah.
Stroud is he hasn't had that for a while, it seems. Hopefully he does get that back, but at the current moment he doesn't have it.
Yeah. I'm throwing Jackson and Celio to start.
I'm with it.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I'm with it.
Gentlemen, the U.S. men's national team kind of is playing. Right now it's the JV team, but We're in the Gold Cup, which I don't fully know what the Gold Cup is or what it really means, but we're in it. We play here actually on Wednesday. We play at City Park. Gents, this is going to be a threefer this week. Going to the U.S. men's national team game on Wednesday, the St. Louis game on Saturday, and the St. Louis City 2 game on Sunday. So
We love footy.
We're at the park a lot this week. But let's first talk about this roster that we have. It's a lot of MLS guys and Matt Turner. He's between the pipes, which is always great to see. He was captaining the side the other night.
Shout out Matty T.
Huge penalty save, which we always love. But then it's a bunch of like ragtag, kind of second choice guys. Like Brandon Vasquez is the number 9. He's like 26 years old, lights it up for Cincinnati, but hasn't really come onto the main stage. We have a couple of like 24, 25-year-olds. And then we have some younger guys as well. Our left back, our center midfielder, our center backup. Like we have a lot of guys who are pretty young. Is anyone sticking out to you all from this roster that maybe you're excited to see play on Wednesday? Or is this just a wash for you all?
I think there's guys on the roster who I'm excited about. Like you got to like, how do you say his name? Slanina, the goalie, who's on the roster, just didn't play. Like Miles Robinson, I still think is a baller. Like James Sands at times. Other than that, like I'm just looking at the roster here. There's not a lot of guys that necessarily get me excited. Like Zendejas, obviously we've seen him. He like maybe. But like I think that's sort of the issue, is just that I don't necessarily want to say that the drop off, but it almost is. It's like you look at the all the European players when we watched them in the Nations League, and you just see the quality on the field, the quality in the midfield. And I get there is some sort of cohesiveness that comes with like those guys having done a few cycles together, played in the World Cup. But I just don't understand how some of these players are still part of the national team picture. Like Aaron Long, I don't even need to say anymore. Like he arguably statistically is one of the worst center backs in the MLS, and like that's
in the MLS.
That's just a fact. Like,
and he's getting call ups.
Like DeAndre Yedlin, great servant of the U.S. men's national team. He's a veteran. I get that's why he's there, but he should have no part in the U.S. men's national team future. Christian Roldan's another one. Jesus Ferreira. Like the list goes on and on of sort of these guys that I don't think will ever cut it. So I'm curious if you guys are sort of high on anybody, or you think there's anybody from this squad that could make that transition to their first team of the U.S. men's national team. Because if anything, I think there's maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think that there's like, one or two. And I'll throw the names out. I think first is Tolkien, the left back. Plays for New York. I think he's pretty solid. Behind Anthony Robinson, we do not have depth in that position, by the way.
None.
We just don't. We have none. 2 more actually. Jalen Neal, center back. We actually got to see him play for LA the other night in St. Louis. He was the starting center back for LA. He's 19 years old. As he continues to progress, as he continues to get better, not saying that he's going to displace, Chris Richards or anything like that, but after Walker Zimmerman, you have Cameron Carter-Vickers, but he's not always healthy. He's not always in the lineup. So like Jalen Neal could have a real shot at it. And then lastly is Aiden Morris. He's actually my background today. I'm a huge fan of this kid. He plays in the middle, plays with his heart on his sleeve. He's a true box-to-box midfielder. He's not as like Musa when he's on the ball carrying it. He's a much better progressive carrier. He's a much better progressive passer. But I think for Aiden Morris, where he is in his development right now, I think he could really continue to grow. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was like kind of the next one from this crop to make his move overseas. I could see him going to the Eredivisie, maybe play alongside Taylor Booth out there. I don't know. But other than that, I'm looking at a bunch of guys that have no shot on making the first team, even in the slightest bit. Like even the drop off between, obviously now Balogun and Pepe to Jesus Ferreira, where he's just like ghosting against Jamaica and probably will ghost again against St. Kitts. Like it really is a B team, bro. It's so weird that we're even playing these games. Like for what? I just don't understand it. We had like the Nations League or whatever last week, and that's apparently a big deal. I don't even know why we're playing this.
I kind of feel for Jesus Ferreira because I do think this is his realm. Like I think if we're gonna put out a B team, he at this point probably deserves a shout for this specific position. So, you want the guys to do well, obviously. It is disappointing. I also think we need to point out the Jamaica lineup was kind of raw, to be
Kinda
totally
sick,
honest, bro.
Yeah.
This
Leon
I
Bailey's
saw the
disgusting.
lineup. I saw the lineup and I was tempted to bet against the States because Mikel Antonio, Leon Bailey, Damari Gray, D. Cordova Reed, this Bell guy plays for Luton Town. Andre Blake's one of the best MLS keepers. Those guys are all better than anyone that we just named with the States. I would take I'd take Matt Turner. But yeah, go ahead and give me Mikel Antonio and Leon Bailey. Like that, I think it was semi-commendable. It was not a good effort. I didn't watch the game, to be totally fair. I watched a lot of the highlights and caught up. But like seeing Christian Roldan's sky shots from the 18-yard box for throw-ins.
Fucking Jordan Morris, dude.
Jordan Morris scuffing a shot to the left that he should bag every day of the week. Those are just really, really disappointing. And it's to a certain degree. I was talking to Dan Hornsey, and we're like, if we're giving these guys call-ups that don't necessarily deserve them just because they have experience, what kind of tone do you set to the young kids like with that? Where does new leadership come from if you're not thrust into being in a leadership role even as a young player? So it lead from the top. The top isn't great. Our best players on this roster are the young players. So that's disappointing. I think the Federation's a joke. We've always known that they're a joke. We've set up 2 more friendlies in September with Uzbekistan and Oman. Is that correct? Oman,
which I've never
country?
even heard of. Yeah,
I've not heard of Oman, truthfully. But I guess everyone else is playing competitive games at the time too, so it wasn't a super easy window to fill. But yeah, I don't know. We have issues with the Federation. We've talked about the Federation all the time. The manager recruitment process was a freaking nightmare and wholeheartedly flawed. But yeah, you hope for some of these young guys. I like Cade Cowell. I think Cade Cowell contributes week in, week out in MLS enough
can be electric
for him to get a shout. So
but again, a young guy that is right where he needs to be. But there's no leadership there's no leadership that comes into that group. And I think that you bring up a good point of like who's going to be the next guy. And also for what it's worth, when you look at our first team, they're not very old either. Like Gio Reyna is as old as these guys. And there's like a massive separation between, the skill level. I just, I say it a little tongue in cheek of like, what's the point of these games? But quite truthfully, like when you're looking at like European teams, when you're looking at like England, you're looking at France, they're in the Nations League or whatever it's called over there. And then that's it. They're not playing a Gold Cup in Europe. Like Argentina's not doing that. Like no one else is doing that. And so I think we open ourselves up for a ton of criticism and critique from people like us, where like it just feels like it's not a serious federation and not a serious program, the U.S. men's national team. So
I think that let's hope that we grow into the tournament. Like I think that one of the positives is like if we do somehow win the Gold Cup, like Mexico has some dogs that are playing on their roster. Like obviously Canada's got some dogs that are playing on their roster. It's like there is so many negatives in terms of like the roster configuration, but like I still want to see these guys like perform to a higher level. And like let's hope that like the first game against Jamaica it really was all these guys' first game together. And let's hope they can build some cohesion. So like we maybe can see a few standout performances, but if we see more of the same that we saw, I can't imagine, first of all, that we're going to lose to St. Kitts and Nevis. I bet you that's 5 or 6-0 regardless.
I hope so, bro.
Like I hope when we play actual good teams, we can see some progression, or else you're right. Like what the fuck are we doing this for?
Yeah. We will see, gentlemen, as we as we typically do in these things, last but not least, let's move on to some transfers. The summer is when the transfer window really pops off, and I feel like this week, even though it's only Monday of this week, I feel like this is going to be the week that a lot of things start getting signed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like the first week of July that the transfer window technically opens.
July
which
1.
is yeah, so like that's, in a couple of days, that's Saturday. So there's going to be a lot of deals that we see that are like finished. We between our two clubs, we have a lot of rumors going around. Dobes, you want to start off with like maybe what's going around United and fill us in on your takes?
Holy shit, man. I mean, where do you even start? I think the Mount situation, just because from last week, the update this week, United put in a bid for Mount for, I don't even know the number. Chelsea essentially said that the number wasn't high enough. And it looks as though at the moment that United's going to walk away from this deal, which I personally think, not necessarily to walk away, but I think that if you overpay now, when you go try to buy another player, this same exact situation is going to continue to happen. Everybody is going to want that United tax, that few extra couple $1,000,000 that really means nothing. So it looks at the moment as though the Mount deal is a little bit stalled, which if, he's indicated he wants to come join us for free in the summer, we could move on to Casado, a few other different options. Personally, in the bottom of my heart, I think this Mount deal gets done. I think that Chelsea are going to eventually, there's going to be some sort of wiggle room to where just the terms change, the length of the deal changes, how we pay them changes. And I do think this deal gets done. I think the interesting point from the Mount deal is like Kovacic goes to City. City's like, hey, Chelsea, here's 25 million. And Chelsea's just like, yeah, that sounds perfect. Like, why not? Take your guy. And like we go and we offer what they essentially evaluated Mount at or what he's worth. And they're like, you know what? No, toss in 3 million or we're not taking him. Or we're not taking it. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I bet you we still do end up with Mount. It's been very clear that Ten Hag wants him, but I am a little bit proud of United a little bit for finally having some balls. Because like in the past, it seems like the moment that like a club's like, yeah, we want more, it's just like, yeah, here, you guys want 5? Well, here's 10.
Yeah.
And we just end up continuously overpaying for players. So that's Mount. Onana is the one that I mentioned last week. His representatives were in Manchester this past week. He's absolutely box office. I have watched nothing but Onana highlights for the past week. I want him at United so bad. He will probably make some mistakes playing out of the back, but at least he's fucking electric when he does it. So I'd be happy with Onana. I'm trying to think. The Højlund one has gone quiet over the past week, just in terms of our number 9 search. Højlund, I think, has been, at least Fabrizio has indicated, has been the one who we've been most linked to become our next number 9. United fan through and through. He's indicated verbally that like it's his dream to play for Manchester United. Atalanta are offering, I think it's like, are wanting 70 million. I strictly think that like United's transfer window, we go after the first deal because I think the first deal sort of dictates how we spend the rest of our money. So if we spend X amount of money on Mount, it leaves this much left. And I think based off what I'm hearing, it seems like Ten Hag wants a midfielder before he wants anything else. Yeah. So I think it's another summer of frustration to where we're waiting to see what we can get to then dictate the rest of our summer. Which you look at proper clubs, it's like I think Real Madrid's made 3 signings by now. Man City are on the verge of making their second signing right now. Chelsea have signed and sold players. So it's another summer of like, at least indicated right now, of frustration. And then you add in the sale, which is sort of holding everything up. So a lot of frustrating things at current date. Now that can change tomorrow, based off how the transfer window works. But at least today, I really don't know who the first signing is going to be, but I hope it does happen soon.
I heard that Frankie de Jong might be back in the picture.
I don't know who that is. I've never heard of him. I've never heard of Frankie.
I don't know that man.
I think he's terrible though. So we don't need him. I don't want him.
For what it's worth, Dope sent us a video earlier of him literally muting the words Frankie de Jong on his Twitter.
In all honesty, it's the Frankie de Jong is like dream signing. He is Ten Hag's dream signing. He's every single United fan's dream signing, that ball progressing center midfielder, But after what happened last summer, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to wait 6 months for us to sign a player. If he doesn't have an inkling that he wants to join United, move on. We can't continue to wait for players. Preseason starts in 2 weeks. Like, people don't realize preseason starts in 2 weeks. And there was all these complaints from Ten Hag last year about how he didn't have the players he wanted in for preseason, all this different stuff. That's the exact same spot we're in again. So I don't want to hear Frankie de Jong's name mentioned unless that there's something from him that says he's willing to join us, because all indications say that he doesn't want to fucking come play for United, and that's fine. But
I mean, Lord knows I'm a massive Frankie de Jong fan, but I'm not buying into the hype even in the slightest bit. Like, you were texting me all throughout the day that,
I hate
it was all over Twitter. My buddy John, who's a huge United fan, like, all over Twitter, and I'm just laughing it off. I'm like, dude, whatever. Barcelona is such a shit show. Like, it's not even like I won't, it's not even on Frankie for me. It's like Barcelona is such a joke of a club that, like, I just won't believe anything that I read about Barcelona's transfers until it happens. And if it does happen, cool. But what I'd like to see, truthfully, is like, we need to get that midfield signing done, and whether that's Mount or Caicedo, down. I want Caicedo more than I want Mount, but I want United to kind of play a little bit of hardball, bro. Like, with Harry Kane, Levy doesn't want to sell to another, like, Prem team, which is fine. So I think we force their hand. I think we make an offer of 80 million or whatever and say, hey, that's the offer. And if Levy says, fuck you, we say, all right. And we go make an official bid for Rasmus Højlund, letting them know that, like, Harry Kane will leave for free next year, and this is your option to take it. And similar with Mount, I think we made our offer. They said no. We said, all right, we go make an official bid for Caicedo or Frankie de Jong or whatever it may be. Let them know that we'll move on from the deal. Because, like you said, we've gotten our pants pulled down for years in the transfer window of just overpaying, and then it leads to, like, unfair expectations on the player and all of this shit where it's like, I think it was like Goldbridge or someone that said it. It's like the perfect analogy for United. So, like, we say we want Anthony. They said, perfect. He's 60 million. We said, how about 40 million? They said, how about 60 million? We're like, how about 45 million? They're like, how about 60 million? We said, how about 50 million? They're like, how about 60 million? And by then it's like the end of July, and we're like, okay, we'll do the 60 million. They're like, well, how about 80 million now? Because you, like, waited around for as long as it was. We get desperate and we overpay. So I hope that there's something that happens in the next week, or maybe July 1. I don't know. They're announcing the jersey tomorrow. Maybe they'll announce the jersey and Mount at the same time. I don't know. But I'm so sick of the transfer window already, and we still have, like,
Dude, it's
2
the
months of it left. It's
It's
terrible.
the worst.
And with the last point I'll make about United, and then we can kick it over to Hoove, is it's like, the frustrating part is we are linked with so many players, because it's the same thing with Madrid. It's the same thing with all these clubs, because it's like, a journalist wants to tweet that United's linked for a player because United's got one of the biggest followings in the world.
Right.
People are gonna read that article. They're gonna watch all the videos. It's just, it is what it is. So I think that's the most frustrating part about it, is like, for me, it's like, if I don't see something from Fab or Ornstein, I'm like, I'm not believing it, because we spent the entire last summer every single day, like, begging and praying that, like, I was like tracking flights to see where guys were flying across the world, and nothing would end up happening. And so now I think it's just like, we kind of have to sit back and just hope and pray that, one, the takeover gets done, and that, two, that Ten Hag gets backed, because if not, the clubs around us are going to continue moving forward, and we may get left in the dust, and it's going to be nobody's fault but our own.
Yep. Hoove, what's going on in the Tottenham world, bro?
Everyone wants to be Brighton until it's time to make a Brighton signing. That is my first point. And in typical Tottenham Hotspur fashion, we did not take the $40 million David Raya Premier League experienced top quality keeper route. No, we didn't. We got a guy by the name of Guglielmo Vicario, who had a really good season with Empoli in Serie A last year. Never heard of the guy in my entire life. But that's okay, because it's very much so a Brighton signing. The things that I've read, the things that I've watched, given maybe a little bit stronger of a staff around him, which no promises, it's Tottenham Hotspur. he should be able to be a pretty solid keeper for the next couple of years. He's a young guy, is strong on the ball, great reactionary save ability, outperformed a lot of his, expected goals given type thing. So, this strikes me as a Brighton signing. This is something of a guy that we don't know, but statistically, he may fit pretty well in the system. And that's something that I think Ange is doing because of his Celtic background and because of his Japanese background and because of his Australian background, is that he doesn't really give a shit if this guy is, the best player on his team or the best player on whatever. I think he's looking at individual performances to be like, was he the reason for X? Was he the reason for whatever? And he's data breaking performances down to see what could work with his system. So that's what this keeper signing sounds like. And sure, I'm not super pissed about it. I'm disappointed we just didn't pay the money for Raya, because we have it and we're like the second grossest or the second highest grossest earning clubs in the country. I don't know, whatever. I could give stats about that, but fine with it. The only other things that I've heard, and you said it to me recently, was Cameron Carter-Vickers is obviously adored by Ange, played with him at Celtic, was probably one of the defenders of the year in the Scottish League.
I think he won Defender of the Year. I think he was the Defender of the Year.
I think you're right. Yeah, he was, because Malik Tillman was like Young Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Too, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he Defender of the Year in the Scottish League. People might not know that he was under contract for a very long time at Tottenham Hotspur. The fans jokingly called him the captain of preseason because he would play every single game in preseason, averagely fine, and then just wouldn't get a look ever through the actual season. So I have no issue with him coming back either. I don't know what we have to lose on the back line. Like, is he going to come in and be better than Eric Dyer or Davinson Sanchez? Done.
Probably.
Sure. Do it. So I think that's fine. That's not your Tapsoba. That's not your, more refined, probably center back pick. But you would hope that you could get him cut rate back to the club that sold him to the Scotland. And I don't even look at this one like a club's fault. I think this is a player that plays well under a manager that he hadn't had prior and has really come out of his shell. I don't think Tottenham's looking at it like, shit, man, we're gonna have to buy back a guy that we released. No,
yeah, definitely.
I think he got a lot better, and
yes,
you're gonna have to pay a little bit more money to bring him back in. So that's fine. That's fine. You know what I mean? That's the Tottenham Hotspur transfer season. Everything we've done right now is fine. We let some young talents go. I would love to see Madison. From everything that I've read, Newcastle picking up Tonali kind of curbed some of their enthusiasm with going after him. Leicester still wants 60 million. Daniel Levy's not going to pay 60 million. But general tweets and just media I've seen is Madison's open to joining Tottenham. He may have even completed personal terms with the club. That could be just a rumor, but hoping for an official bid this week. That would be sweet.
Give me Kane.
Yeah.
Give me the Kane update.
Nothing. I think the further this summer goes, I said a while ago that the last thing Daniel Levy's going to do is let him walk on a free. Further the summer goes, I think the more likely it is, for sure.
That he leaves?
And that he walks next year completely.
Oh, I was gonna say, he seems like the guy. I saw it on Sky Sports. I saw it on Talk Sport. Like, everybody's saying that, like, Harry Kane wants to leave Tottenham, but it's the love for the club so much that he doesn't want to ask for a transfer. And there's definitely respect in that 100%. But I think that's the thing, is like the Tom Holland thing. Everybody's kind of like, Kane, go win your trophies. But I think that he has too much respect. And I think he just truthfully respects the legacy that he's built at Tottenham too much to go out on asking to leave. Because truthfully, I think that's the only way he leaves this summer, is if he does ask to leave. Because if not, I think he's leaving on a free next summer.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. I've seen people be like, you have to question his seriousness as a footballer if he doesn't.
Yeah, like
leave.
his drive. Yeah.
And I genuinely hate that, because if anything, to me, the guy has proved that he's the ultimate competitor
100%.
and wants nothing more than to win everything all the time. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I don't think he asks to leave, but I also don't think he goes to Chelsea. You know what I mean? I don't think he wants to go to United. I don't think he wants to go to Chelsea. I don't think he wants to go. If he goes somewhere, I do think, I think there's no reason he shouldn't go to Real Madrid. I think that's something that he would probably be open to. Benzema's gone. But, it, I want him to do something too. I just don't want him to do it at Chelsea, and I don't want him to do it at United. And I'm
Fair.
willing.
That's fair.
I'm willing for the next however many months to let the unknown be unknown, because I'm not ready to see that update, because truthfully, you can build whatever kind of career you want with a club, but as soon as you go to a direct rival across town,
Different. It's one of those. It's like, is Van Persie treated the same by Arsenal fans?
Hell
yeah.
No, like not even a little bit.
No, and that's, the Van Persie thing was the Van Persie thing. He wasn't who Harry Kane is to Tottenham.
No.
Exactly.
He
got better at United.
He got better at United. And I don't think Harry Kane gets a whole lot better anywhere else, but I do think he has more opportunities just because of the players, other guys around him. But yeah, I hope he signs a year extension and we let him go for 80 million in the summer to Real Madrid, and everybody's happy and we move on. But is what it is. I've seen Richarlison talking about Real Madrid in the media too, which is like, okay, buddy.
Like, you get the fucking, they're about to drop 200 million on Mbappe. Get your fucking ass out of here.
Can you imagine if they get Mbappe and Bellingham in the same window, bro?
I think that's like a good segue. Like, there's still some like big, massive name players. Like, as we're sitting here right now, it's Monday night. Like, it's official. Like, City put in a bid for Declan Rice.
Yep.
Where does he end up in your guys' eyes?
I think he goes to City, bro.
Actually,
I think he goes to City too.
To set some context, the two teams that are currently in for him, Arsenal's made 2 bids. City's made their first bid. There's rumors that United are going to make a bid of McTominay plus Maguire plus cash. That hasn't happened yet. I think he ends up at Arsenal. I think he ends up at Arsenal. I get the temptation of Man City. It's guaranteed trophies. It's guaranteed playing for Pep Guardiola. But I think that the idea of joining an Arsenal or joining a Manchester United, of joining one of these historic clubs, you got to remember this, like born and raised in England, born and raised watching the Premier League. He understands the history of the Premier League. I think him joining an Arsenal and being the core piece to like them getting back to the top means 10 times more than anything he could ever win at Manchester City. Like anything.
That's true.
They've been there. They've done it all. So like he just becomes another title. Like he's not the key piece, to where if he does go to an Arsenal, like he's the key piece in a team that takes them to that level that they haven't been in so long. And I think he recognizes that. So I do think that if Arsenal match Man City, and I think if he has a choice, I can see him going to Arsenal like 100%. I almost hope he does if it's between those two. But that's just my opinion.
I think there's only so much that he really does have a say in, because a lot of it's going to come down to price. But if he does have to pick, who's going to be able to pay him more? Like there's just so many financial factors on the City side that are, they will pay $5 to $10 million more than Arsenal for him, just probably because they can. That's not a problem. B, they're probably paying him another $50,000 to $100,000 a week because they can. C, he's gonna win those trophies, and you're right, it doesn't mean as much, I don't think, especially from a guy like his. I agree wholeheartedly that I do think he prefers to join Arsenal as opposed to City. But if you're telling me that those are your two options, and one of them is going to pay way more money for your services, I got a hard time not taking it.
It's a fucking plastic club, and I think that's what's frustrating.
Yeah.
Like City fucking announced their first tweet, Manchester City, we won the treble. Like Lisandro Martinez posted he was back running. It has more likes than the fucking tweet of City winning the treble. Like, it's just a fucking plastic club. And I don't know. It could just be me wanting him to almost join Arsenal because I don't want to see City keep doing what they're fucking doing. But it's hard for me to see him go to City and just like, because
He seems like a big legacy guy, like to your point. Like I think that's a little bit of like his character. I think if he was truthfully, I think if he was concerned, which is kind of backtracking because I said he was going to go to City, but like I think if he was really concerned with like making all that money and doing all that, he would have left last year or 2 years ago whenever he was linked with a bunch of places. And I mean, it was still for 100 million. It was still for a ton of money. But he might be a little bit more focused on legacy and a little bit more focused on rebuilding. The fact of the matter is he's 24 years old. I do wonder what it would look like if he does go to City, let's say signs a 4-year contract, then he's 28 years old in like going into his prime as a CDM, ready to kind of go wherever. I don't know. Like it's just hard to predict. I think he'll be a player that will play for the next 10 years. Like I think he'll be a 34-year-old starter in the Premier League, probably back at West Ham. But I don't know.
what a replacement for Gundogan.
Dude.
What a replacement for Gundogan,
Dude. It's wild.
Their captain, arguably their best midfield, on his day, he can be their best midfielder. Yeah. Is the best way to say it. But he's extremely important, and then he just leaves and goes to Barcelona, and they're just like, yeah, no worries.
We got Rice.
Dex, come here, boy.
Like, what I don't understand, man, is like, I mean, you made an allusion to it earlier with the Kovacic thing about how they like offered 25 million or 30 million or whatever, and they're like, Chelsea was like, sure. The way that City does their business with other clubs is like Bayern Munich, where they're like, yep, this is what we want. This is the price that we're going to do. And other clubs are like, yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the business. Like, I really appreciate it. Cause like other clubs are going to like nickel and dime them. It's just like kind of this interesting thing that, players want to go play for Pep. They want to win trophies, of course, but like the other clubs seem to like do business with them. And maybe it goes into like, different kinds of payments for the club, or another aspect of it is like City could probably pay 100 million up front, like no installments, no anything, like 100 million, here you go, which is possible. But they also look like they're going to be signing Gvardiol, which is the young defender of the World Cup for RB Leipzig.
For how much too?
It's like 120 million.
Oh, really? Is that much? I thought it was.
He would be the most expensive center back signing, I think, ever.
Wow. Which honestly, like, I think that's a pretty big risk for 120 million. Bro, for like.
Why do they need him?
I don't know. Like, I mean, truthfully, it's going to be depth because Laporte's going to leave. Like, I could see, Akanji probably has like one more.
Ake could even step in and be a better center back, like one of the best center backs in the Prem, probably if he wanted to.
Yeah, bro, but Ake's got that left back locked down. Ake's a left back now. But the last thing that I want to hit on, fellas, is we kind of talked about it last week, but the Saudi League is making signing after signing after signing. What's your take on this? Because I can see both ends of the spectrum of like how this is intriguing for players, and then I can also see like how I feel, which is this is bullshit and I hate this. So
I think the only thing intriguing for players is the money.
Yeah,
That's
the money.
And I get it, dude. I don't know. Like same with the Live Golf Tour and stuff. Like I had a hard time sitting over here being like, nah, screw that guy for his morals and where his money's coming from.
Don't take life-changing money.
No, yeah, don't do it. Stupid. Heaven forbid the PGA nickel and dime you every time you go on the tour. No, I was not anti all of that. My biggest issue with all of it is the Saudi is kind of how they're going about it and just the business that they're doing with clubs. They're straight up overpaying. Chelsea has 6 or 7 guys probably headed to the Saudi league, in a league backed by the Saudi Arabian government, who also put a percentage stake, ownership into Todd Bowley's consortium. Mm-hmm. So now we're watching Todd Bowley sell players that they bought for a ton of money go back for pretty decent money to the Saudi Arabian league. And it's just this like cycle of like money laundering. Like Todd needs
What
to
it feels
recover
like.
some of the funds. Todd needs to recover all these funds from these guys that he bought that didn't pan out. What do? You sell them back to the country that is already funding your operation. It just feels wrong. And I don't really know how else to describe it. And no one's gonna give a shit about the Saudi League. No one's gonna watch it. There's no inkling in my mind that I'm gonna turn on a single Saudi League game next year. And if I do, it's because I'm going to see clips of Cristiano Ronaldo doing in the middle of desert stadium. Like, it's just I get, they're trying the sports washing thing. We can get all into that too, but it's not going to work. Like, you keep spending this money, you keep paying these guys like unbelievable amounts of money. They're going to keep coming over. But the objective is to change how people perceive your country. That's not, you don't do it by just paying people, which is all they've ever done to do anything within the sports world is just pay people. No, there's no legacy. There's no history. There's no draw for me to want to watch a 32-year-old Benzema play with 10 other guys that I've never heard of in my life. I just can't. I can't get behind any of it. I think it's disappointing. We may even lose Bobby Firmino to St. Louis, to Al Hilal or whatever. Just all around super disappointing. But, you guys can.
Well, I also hate it because, like, some of these older guys, Benzema, whatever, like he's 32, 33, it is what it is.
Benzema's got it in him still. That's
well, I know. But, like, I saw Ruben Neves go at 26 and, like, Ruben Neves was linked with like all the big clubs as recently as January. So like,
saying he's gonna be loaned back to Newcastle.
Yeah. So like, it bothers me for like the product of the game. Like I remember, do you guys remember back in like 2012, 2013, Oscar and Ramirez from Chelsea went over to like China?
Yeah. China.
And how weird that was. Like, it was so weird that they made that move because both of them were like just playing in the Champions League, but they went and got a bag. And is what it is, but like those guys fade off into obscurity. Maybe they're still playing, I don't know. But yeah, like some of these guys that are going, Koulibaly just signed for Chelsea for 80 million last year or whatever it was. Like, it's not like these guys are just nobodies. So it bothers me with the product because I think what makes the Premier League the best league in the world is that you have guys like Ruben Neves at Wolves where he can play, away at any top 4 club stadium and like put in a banger. And that's what makes the Prem so exciting, that you remove these guys who are like maybe the best on their teams, but they're not at the top teams, that it might just like lessen the product of all of the other games. Or like Koulibaly, you can't tell me wouldn't like make a substantial signing for like another Prem team or like go back to Italy, like, start for one of theirs. Like they can still play at the top. Benzema the same way, bro. Like he can definitely keep it going, but I don't know. I think the Saudi League is going to continue making signings and it's going to continue just being like a real big what the fuck.
I think that I think it's the Saudis and not just the Saudis, but like the Qataris and like they're here to stay. Not just in like footy, in all sports. And like that's just something we have to accept. I think the one thing with like that directly affects like football in the Premier League is like I think that they're already a little bit too late in like getting regulations in place like to prepare for stuff like that. But I think that this needs to be regulated in a way that like if players want to go do that, like you said, like you can't blame them. Like there's videos of like Igalo on this like the team jet that they're traveling on, and it's the most extravagant, fucking coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's like you can't blame players. Like, Hoove, you brought up a good point. Like, I saw that the average age of players that come and join the MLS is 25 years old. Like, that's how you look to, like, grow a league to become something. So, like, the Saudis are going to keep spending this money. Nobody's going to watch. And these players are just like, you think Karim Benzema is going to give the same effort that he's been giving for Real Madrid in the summer and the offseason? Like, he's going to a World Cup, trying to go win a treble. Like, no. So I think you're going to have to see, like, players are going to be making this decision to where, like, it's been the same thing with Liv. Like, do you want money or do you want legacy? Like, we saw Luka Modric turn down, I think, probably the biggest offer of anybody to go over there. And he said, no, I want to continue playing at Real Madrid and I want to continue winning things.
Right.
So I think that's what players are going to continue having to do. But then again, when you see those commas and those
Dude,
zeros
tough.
in your bank account, and like you see, not just you setting up your family, but your kids, your kids, your kids, like it's very hard to say no. And I think that's
Right.
what sucks is we're seeing players that still have a lot of quality leave and go over there.
There isn't much I wouldn't do for $300 million. Just gonna throw that out there.
Name
You
it.
know.
Name
Yeah.
it.
Throw it out.
Name it.
Dude, the thing that last point before we wrap up too, and it was just a tweet I saw that you're right about the regulations wholeheartedly, and this is the reason. This is the reason why. If Al Hilal do sign Ruben Neves,
and then go back to Newcastle,
and then he loans him back to Newcastle, we're watching the Saudi Arabian Premier League club that was purchased and is absolutely well known that it is owned by the government of Saudi Arabia, along with every other domestic team in the Saudi Arabian team who is also somewhat owned by the Saudi Arabian government. We're going to see loopholes and financial violations after financial violations. Like that is a problem. Guys being able to sign contracts and get paid by a club that's not in the country to go back to the team that the previous country already owns. Issues there.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I think it's time that we wrap. I want a quick fire factor cap on this statement. No explanation, factor cap. After the conclusion of the 2022-2023 Prem season, Koulibaly is the biggest bust.
Yeah, I mean, shit, Richie scored some Champions League goals.
Arthur.
Oh.
Never saw the field, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
He's for the price tag. It's not like Koulibaly's like not.
Yeah,
for sure. But I'm gonna go cap.
That's fair.
I'll go fact. It was a rough one.
Fact as fuck. Huge dollar spent last after a season.
The Mecca bet of the week. Hammer.
Oh, true.
Hammer.
Yeah,
I forgot
dude.
to mention that one. Hammered
FC
it.
Cincinnati,
FC Cincinnati minus 150. Hammered it.
Want to
go ahead.
know?
Peep the next one upcoming.
We'll have
we don't
Wings,
have it yet.
We'll have Wings post a TikTok this week. And we'll share it everywhere.
We'll
Absolutely.
run it back up.
Well, speaking of that TikTok, great episode, fellas. As always, join us on the social media, the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter. Twitter's been active. Gotta love an active Twitter from the Mecca. And with that being said, fellas, good work. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.
Yeah, boys. Good one.